Dear friends, we have this morning a curious Gospel reading, and I'm not talking about the way in which Jesus appears to insult the Gentile woman by calling her a dog. I'll discuss that another time. Now, the curious thing about this morning's passage, and it occurs a few other times in Mark's Gospel too, is the way in which Jesus is trying to be anonymous. He doesn't want anyone to know where he's staying, but the Gentile woman finds out anyhow. Then, when he heals the man with a speech impediment, he asks the crowd not to tell anyone, to keep it quiet. And of course, that fails too. Now, what's going on here? There is a theme in Mark's Gospel, which is sometimes called the messianic secret, which refers to episodes like this in the first half of the Gospel, when Jesus is trying to keep a lid on expectations. And there is a reasonably straightforward explanation for this. Jesus knows about the power of crowds. He knows about the longing for a Messiah and the way in which a crowd can raise people up and then cast them down when the desires of the crowd are not satisfied. This is a part of human nature. Look at the way our tabloid newspapers operate for a modern example of this. So Jesus is not wanting this process to get started prematurely. Halfway through Mark's Gospel, Jesus resolves to go to Jerusalem, and from then on there is no desire to keep things secret. And the triumphal entry into Jerusalem, Palm Sunday, is Jesus explicitly taking on all the messianic expectations from the crowd. He knows that his time has come. So Jesus, at this point in the story, wants to keep a lid on the expectations of the crowd, of the people. And so, after healing the man with the speech impediment, he asks them not to tell anyone about it. Yet, filled with amazement, they cannot help but speak. Which brings me to the question I want to raise for us this morning. When was the last time that we were so filled with amazement about what Jesus has done that we cannot help but speak about him? In English culture, we are rather suspicious about enthusiasm. There are clear historical reasons for this. Most especially during the English Civil War, it was the enthusiasts, those most filled with zeal for their religion, that were responsible for causing the most havoc. At the end of the 17th century, the English temper, which had always been phlegmatic, settled into this distancing from emotional enthusiasm, the stoical reserve, the stiff upper lip, and so on. It's why the Church of England is characterized by the via media, the middle way between the excesses of the Puritans and the excesses of the Roman Catholics. At least, that is what we clergy tell ourselves. There is something precious here, which is our distinctive gift within the economy of the Church Catholic. We follow a middle way. Unfortunately, it makes it quite hard for us to talk about Jesus. I think it's one of the principal reasons why our church is struggling so much at the moment. All the enthusiasm, all the fervour comes from either the successors of the Puritans, in Christian or atheist forms, or else from those elements of the Christian world that aren't held back by traditional English reserve, so the more charismatic and international churches. Those are the churches that are growing, of course. If the Church of England is to survive, if our unique charism, the gospel as the Church of England has received it, is to continue to be shared within this nation, then I think that we might need to overcome some of this inherited reserve and reticence. So I return to my question. When were we last so filled with amazement about what Jesus has done that we cannot help but talk to people about it? It may be that our sense of amazement has died out, and the Church of England has done all that the Lord has required of it, and it will now pass into history. But I don't believe that. In my former parish, I used to live very close to the beach, on which I would walk each morning with my dog on my way to church. One morning I saw in the distance the remains of a fire from the previous night, a grey pile of ash and charcoal. On the side of it there appeared to be a red ribbon, which I took to be a random piece of rubbish that had been caught. Yet as I came closer, I realized that this was not a piece of ribbon. It was, in fact, a gap in the ash and charcoal, and that beneath this crusty carapace, the heart of the fire was still red hot. with a little bit of attention, with a little bit of breath blown onto it, and fresh fuel added in, a fire would quickly blaze again. That is my hope and belief for our church. I believe that beneath the dead ash of relentless bureaucratic initiatives and fearful panic, there is a real and living faith that is our joy and privilege to share with zeal and enthusiasm. It's not simply within our church, but also within ourselves. Each of us needs to become like a child in the faith again, ready to enter the kingdom of God, conscious of what Jesus has done for us, and willing to give an account of the hope that is in us. We no longer have any need to be afraid, either of death or those who use the fear of death to take advantage of the weak and vulnerable. We no longer have any need to be afraid of the world or those who serve the interests of the world. So there is no reason for us to remain dumb. May the Lord say to us, Ephphatha, so that our tongues might be opened, and that we too might speak of him with amazement and enthusiasm. Amen.